Today was the deadline for Trump to post a $464 plus million bond in the civil fraud case. As I discussed in my last video on this subject, which I will link in the More section below, Trump and the other defendants in this case had filed a motion in the appellate court to lower the bond amount. In addition to claiming that Trump was unable to post a bond in the full amount, the lawyers for the defendants argued that much of the verdict would be reduced by the appellate court on the merits, which justified a lower bond amount. The appellate court issued an order earlier today that reduced the bond amount to $175 million and gave Trump and the other defendants an additional 10 days to come up with the reduced bond. Since Trump had offered to put up a $100 million cash bond, an additional $75 million should be no trouble for him to do, either through a surety or additional cash put up, particularly if his recent claim to have almost $500 million in cash is accurate. After he posts the bond, and he will, enforcement of the verdict is stayed pending resolution of the appeal, which will not occur prior to the election. What does the new bond amount of $175 million say, if anything, about the appellate court's opinion about the merits of the case? A definite statement on that matter cannot be made. The amount does suggest that the judge's initial reaction is to cut the initial verdict amount in half, or slightly more than half. In a previous video that I titled Trump Civil Fraud Verdict Part 4, which I will link in the More section, I noted that the appellate court may have trouble with about one half of the verdict judgment. It is not a question, in my opinion, of whether the financial statements were fraudulent on the two transactions that I identified as problematic. The financial statements were fraudulent, as found by the court. The legal issue is causation on those two transactions, where the amount of damages ordered by the lower court were arguably not causally related to the fraudulent financial statements. I do not see the appellate court reversing the trial court's findings of fact that the financial statements were fraudulent. There's just too much evidence cited in the record that supports those findings. Reversal of at least part of the verdict will be related to some legal issue like causation or statute of limitations, which were arguments made by the defendant's lawyers in the pleadings related to the bond amount that they made in the appellate court. It is important as a political matter to avoid seizing Trump's property and selling it at auctions. That would simply feed into his victimization arguments and his claims that all of the lawsuits and criminal charges brought against him originate from Democrats seeking to prevent him from becoming president again. A claim that millions will accept without actually looking at the facts of each case and the relative merits of each.